I'm going to start with a poem from a fairly new book called Patient Frame. This poem is called Some Other Just Ones. Now, I did a workshop just a little bit earlier. This workshop was on something called reenactive writing, and I'll be mentioning a bit more about that later, just before I introduce the workshop participant who will be reading to you. But I've done other workshops where I've implored the participants not to write list poems, or to avoid list poems if at all possible, because they can so easily become too fluent and facile. But then I discovered a list poem by Jorge Luis Borges, the great Argentinian poet and fiction writer, and I really loved it, and I wanted to write my own kind of version of it, or my own take on the same impulse. And in fact, since then I've urged some of my students to do the same thing, and everyone writes a totally different poem, and they're all really interesting. So this poem's called Some Other Just Ones. It's based on Borges's poem, which is called El Justo, the Just. And the first and last lines you hear are Borges's, translated from the Spanish. So the first and last lines are his. And I subtitled the poem, A Footnote to Borges. The printer who sets this page with skill, though he may not admire it. Singers of solo expertise who defer and find harmonies instead. Anyone whose skeleton is susceptible to music. She who, having loved a book or record, instantly passes it on. Whose heart lilts at a span of vacant highway, the fervent surge of acceleration, psalm of the tires. Adults content to let children bury them in sand or leaves. Those for whom sustaining hatred is a difficulty. Surprised by tenderness on meeting at a reunion the persecutors of their youth. Likely to forget debts owed them, but never a debt they owe. Apt to read Plutarch or Thich Nhat Hanh with the urgency of one reading the morning news. Frightened ones who fight to keep fear from keeping them from life. The barber who, no matter how long the line, will not rush the masterful shave or cut. The small-scale makers of precious obscurios, pomegranate spoons, conductors' batons, harpsichord tuning hammers, War of 1812 reenactors' ramrods, hand cranks for hurdy-gurdies. The grade school that renewed the brownfields back of the A and P and made them ample, miraculous May and June. The street gang that casts no comment as they thin out to let Bob, the barking man, squawk past them on the sidewalk. The two African medical students in Belgrade, 1983, who sing A Traveler Lost and Broke, took him in and fed him rice and beans cooked over a camp stove in their cubicle of a room, and let him sleep there while one of them studied all night at the desk between the beds with the lamp swung low. Those who sit on front porches, not in fenced privacy, in the erotic, inaugural summer night steam, who redeem from neglect a gorgeous, long-orphaned word, who treat dogs with a sincere and comical diplomacy, attempt to craft a decent wine in a desperate climate, clip the chain of consequence by letting others have the last word, master the banjo, are operatically loud in love. These people, without knowing it, are saving the world.